and
Are you in Puerto Rico?
in the Philippines.
Philippines. Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sounds frightening.
Yeah, we were just talking, we've got a lot going on down in Florida. My parents are down there visiting right now. And my coworkers yesterday were like, what? Everybody's like leaving Florida and your parents are like, oh, let's go hang out. All right. Well, I think we are getting going here.
Okay.
So we are building on last week, talking about soft skills in interviewing in the workplace and how much of a difference our soft skills make. And so we're building on that this week. And I want to check in, Jane, are we live and rolling? Fantastic. Thank you. Sweet. Well, everybody, we will be getting started here in a minute or so. We are going to continue from last week. We got into the power of agreeing and disagreeing. And sometimes it's really important to know how to just say, I disagree with this, or there's something I don't like about this. And speaking up in a meeting can be really important. But it takes skills and it takes awareness of the context that you're in, and of your level in the company or in the meeting or in the group, of how to influence effect. So we're going to dig deeper today and be talking about soft skills as we have people joining in. Reminder to everybody that the best way, hello, Andy, welcome. The best way to be joining in is on Zoom. If you're able to do that, jump in. That way we can work with you directly. Welcome, Andy. We're getting started here in a few minutes, but good to have you on. And you're welcome to join in on Zoom. And reminder that any question that you have career related is welcome. There's no question too small, no question too big. Sometimes people will join in week after week and be developing, building on their questions. So there's a few ways for you to participate. Again, the best way is to jump in on Zoom. That way we can work with you directly. If you're unable to, you can jump in to the LinkedIn Live or on YouTube, and you can type your questions into the comments section, and Jane will get those over to Dr. Medlock and me. Annie, welcome.
Hey, George. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Good to have you.
Yeah, good to see you. Hey, everyone.
Yes.
Hello. Good to have you here.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of getting us started as we are. There's a few ways to join in. We love it when you jump in like Andy and Annie. That way we can work with you directly. But if you can't, then you can always type your questions into the comment section on YouTube or LinkedIn, and Jane will get those over to us. So again, we're talking about soft skills today. These are incredibly important in interviews, in the workplace, and we'll share some more about that. But I also want to underline again that any question that you have, that's what we're here for, really. Whatever's on your heart, Dr. Medlock and I are here to help you sort that out as you are developing in your career. So I'd love to just open it up. Dr. Medlock, is there anything you want to say before
I'm glad you asked that question, George Donald, because I personally am not fond of the term soft skills. And maybe it's I have this value framework that hard is better than soft, that if you're soft, you're not really in shape. I don't know. There's a lot of negative connotations to soft for me. I know soft can be sweet, but I prefer sort of task skills and relationship skills. And it strikes me that really the skills we're talking about are the skills for how to facilitating relationship, both with yourself and others, so that you can communicate effectively and influence. And it's the same thing that George Donald is talking about, but I really like the term better because it sort of puts the focus. We do a lot of work in our graduate university. We have an MBA program. And one of the things that we focus on in business is that relationship management and how to manage relationships effectively is key to success in business at whatever level you're at. So these relationship skills are as important, or in many cases, particularly at higher levels, more important than the task skills. And truth is, you need both to be successful. So I just want to do my pitch for that change in terminology and invite people to talk about their own development in terms of relationship skills and how it's affected their success in their careers or challenges that they're having.
Dr. Medlock, thank you so much.
Sure.
That is, and thank you, Jane, for throwing the link to the graduate university in there. I think that's really important what you're underlining about that we need the task skills. Obviously, we taken training to get into things, but that as we move up, that the relationship skills are the thing that will help us really develop in our career.
Yeah.
And there's always more training I can take in terms of acquiring a new technical skill. And what I'm hearing is that we are really focusing on the relationship skills, on acquiring the relationship skills.
And George Donald, as you're saying that, one of the things that I'd add to this, just to kind of give some little bit more perspective, is there's a lot of neuroscience, very good neuroscience research that indicates that we can't do a task skill and a relationship skill at the same time. If you're in task mode, you're focusing on the task and you're not going to be as related to or connected to the relationship piece. The same token, if you're really focusing on the relationship in that moment, you're not going to be focusing on the task. So the skill that we develop at Right is the facility in moving quickly between task and relationship mode in any business situation or work situation. So you can have that facility to go between one and the other, because our brains will get stuck in one or the other and not know how to shift. So it's kind of like having a gear shift that doesn't have enough oil in it. It's hard to get it from one gear to the next. So it's really the skill of moving. And this is what we call why presence is so important. The ability to stay present to what's going on, so I can be in the task or I can be in the relationship and do both and move between them. So it's a critical skill in interviewing, a critical skill in meetings, in any aspect of business. So I just wanted to throw that piece in too, that's part of why it's a challenge.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Medlock. And to that point, I want to open it up to everybody and get engagement. So Andy, whoever, what's on your heart today? How can we serve you?
Yeah. I think sitting in HR and just the background I bring, I do feel like in my career right now, I have found a pretty good balance of managing both the soft and the hard skills. I think when I first started off, I was so focused on the hard skills, and now I'm realizing how important it really is to be human and kind of understand people on a different level. And I'm realizing, a lot of my managers throughout my career have always displayed these soft skills. And I think it's interesting too, kind of turning it on and off. I do find that I put blocks throughout my calendar throughout the day, where this is specifically for hard skills. And then the rest of the day, it's kind of me just utilizing those soft skills I have and making sure hiring managers have what they need. But I'm very much, I need to have an hour of going through data entry, email, and everything like that. So I think that's interesting you said that. I feel like I was just kind of doing that without even realizing, wait, you can't do both at the same time. He's
Exactly.
right. So that was interesting.
Good awareness. Absolutely. Yeah, and you get stuck in that email, and pretty soon, the days have gone, and you forgot about all those relationships you had to manage today.
Exactly. So it's definitely like a balancing act, and I find myself always, trying to learn new ways to not only better my hard skills but my soft skills as well. I feel like every day it's a different challenge, and instead of getting frustrated, it's more kind of like, okay, how can I utilize both my hard skills and soft skills in this moment, connect with these people in a way where we can come together and problem solve? So I was really excited about this. I love soft skills personally. I think through the pandemic as well, it's made me a little softer just in general with having empathy towards people. But I have seen some people on the flip side, whether it's coworkers, colleagues, whatever the case is, where they're just not necessarily tapped into their soft skills yet. So is there any advice you guys can give on maybe feedback for that, for someone who's maybe you're not reporting to, or if anyone has any feedback, or just a way to kind of approach that, I guess?
Well, one of the things that we do, I'm just going to mention, this is just a short answer, is the More Life training. It's a weekend training in soft skills. And I don't know if you're familiar with it at all. Have you done that, Annie? Are you familiar with it?
No,
But
no.
it's an intensive, it's actually at no cost. It's our introduction to our work because we really focus in this area. And what it really focuses is on, it helps you build that skill set that we're talking about by being in a set of experiences, learning with others, exploring yourself. There's a lot to it. It's soft skills kind of sound like, oh, there's a kind of a checklist. It's really about personal development and understanding yourself and becoming more aware of what's going on emotionally for you. So we take people through a very comprehensive and in-depth weekend experience. What it does is it gives them a kind of the landscape of soft skills and how to apply them. And it also kind of the introduction to, then we have follow-up programs where we then actually work on the skill development. And what we have are a series of structured assignments that we give for soft skill development. So to help, it begins with just noticing your feelings, being aware, being able to name them, and then how do you communicate those feelings with others, and a whole series and progression of things around those. So because you have to practice it to get it and to learn it, so you have to be able to reduce it to an assignment or a task or a specific skill that you can work on and then practice it. And then you have a community of people to support you so that you're all learning together and sharing your experiences with each other and vicarious learning with each other. And that I think that's really, it gives you a deeper dive and really helps you build that muscle more. So that's what I'd recommend as kind of a starter. And maybe Jane could put a link to that. I think our next one's in November, right? I think Georgetown.
Yeah, we've got that coming up in November 4th.
November 4th. Okay, cool.
And that's great. I mean, totally, because that is the training in that. But Annie, is there anything specific that you're seeing right now that you could move forward possibly even this week that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I guess it's just hard to say, because I do find myself, I like to stay in my lane, and I'm really good at doing things when people ask me, and then I can go above and beyond when it comes to that. But looking at it from like a bigger picture, I'm realizing there are these situations where maybe if I did step in, that'll help me out with like leadership development down the road, instead of just, oh, well, this person's acting this way, I'm going to let them deal with it. It's more me trying to like, how can I help you? And kind of what you were saying, like understanding your emotions and not, I guess what I'm trying to say is like how to communicate that to someone without coming off too strong. So what I'm thinking is maybe just setting more realistic expectations on like calls and meetings and stuff like that to let people know kind of where I'm at with my game plan. So that way we can try to just stay on the same page, if that makes sense.
Well, Annie, as you're talking about this, you're in a role where you're coaching people in developing skills, right? Yeah, and the coaching competencies, we're really seeing that coaching is a part of this educational process. So as you're talking about it, to actually help them explore that, have you thought about asking some open-ending questions about the importance of being able to express your feelings directly or be aware of the feelings, and just begin a kind of, the cool thing about coaching is it focuses on letting the learner or the person you're coaching determine the agenda of where they want to go. So you're not forcing an agenda on them. You're asking questions to get them to think about, oh, what about that? And then you can explore it. And then together you may decide you want to use that as a focus for your coaching session. And then they want to explore where have they noticed where they had difficulty handling emotionally charged situations, where they were upset or under stress. So I think coaching is just an important part of the skill set now of HR in a way that it perhaps wasn't before. And so I think be able to build that skill set. And that's another thing. We have a coaching program at our graduate university that focuses on and a certificate program on that as well. So that's an important, and I'm actually very involved in the coaching program. So it's something I really believe in and think is important. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Medlock, I'm glad that you just put it that way. I am thinking about how one of the aspects that you mentioned earlier of becoming more emotionally aware of what's going on with me, such that then when I'm asking questions and somebody is working through challenges, then like the less I have to jump in and try to like offer solutions, and I can hold more of the space where they're going to come up with something meaningfully. But if I haven't done my own work to be comfortable with my emotions, to be able to handle myself, then I'm not going to be able to do that effectively.
Yeah, good.
And I'm thinking about one of our colleagues who shares the story where she goes into some schools and is helping them with their processes of passing. And one person really kind of freaked out on her, you know, with like yelling and like, oh, we can't do this. And I think she shares this openly. Dr. Lisa Sandin says, you know, hey, she's able to stay with that charge inside of herself of somebody yelling at her and say, look, we've got an hour and I'm going to get on that plane so we can spend this hour with you yelling at me, or we can use that energy to get stuff done. And that ability to be able to meet people where they're at and be like, hey, like we're all human, we can work through this, but to not then shut down and just say, oh, this person's insane and I'm just going to make them wrong and I'm going to do that. But to be like, no, we can partner and I'm able to soothe myself with all the feelings I'm having and we can work things through. And that is a huge leadership skill. So Dr. Medlock, I'm agreeing with you more and more. This soft skill, it's kind of like, you know, it's like, yes, soft is an aspect of it, but there's a lot more to it too. So totally, because it's kind of it's a soft and badass skill.
Yeah, right. And also, Annie, I like the way you're thinking of your own leadership development strategically in this, because actually these skills become more and more important at higher leadership levels, because you're looking at how do I influence people? And we really emphasize the importance of each person taking responsibility for their own career development, and then also finding mentors in your organization to help you in that process, including your manager might recommend somebody. So they get the idea you're developing and growing in certain ways that you want to be a leader, and then that just gets their attention as well. So good move.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to do a quick room reset as we've got some more people joining in here. This is Career Lab Wednesday, every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. We are here. We invite all questions career related, anything on your heart. There's no question too small, no question too big. Oftentimes people join in over the weeks and work out the bigger problems that they're working on in their job. So any question that you have, and I do see Dr. Larissa Chuprina, good to see you. It's been a minute. You're saying that you have an interview coming up. Is that something that you would like to get some support with right now?
Yes, I'm comfortable just to listen now.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you going to practice, like, tell me about yourself story? Maybe this could help.
That's
okay.
A good one, isn't it? Yeah.
I think so. I think that's something that all of us are working on is how to communicate ourselves. Go ahead, Dr. Medlock.
Dr. Chuprina, so one thing to always think about when you get a question like that is, what's the question behind the question?
Mm-hmm.
What is it they really are asking when they say, tell me about yourself? What's your sense about that? What do they really want to know?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, what do you think they're really, when they ask that question, what do you think they really are wanting to know, hear about from you?
It's usually how can they work with me and can I do the job?
Yes, good, yes. So you don't tell them about your grade school experiences or that difficult teacher you had in second grade, you know, whatever. You focus on preparing an answer that will share them to help them get to know you, to see how you know, who you are as a person, and the skills you have that would make this job appropriate and why you're interested in it. So it's exactly that. And it's literally rehearsal is very important. And literally practicing with a friend, when you practice it as though it were real, your mind doesn't know the difference between a practice, your brain doesn't know the difference between a practice session and the real thing. So you're building the skill of being able to do that in the situation where the interview happens. So I can't emphasize enough. You can get a list of 20 questions, the 20 questions that you can always count on in an interview, and just make sure you rehearse and practice them, and do that with friends so that you feel comfortable and ready for those. So real important.
How can you make it succinct? 30 years of experience in different fields.
Great question. So I'm gonna throw in, George Donald, our notion of PAR statements. Okay.
Yeah.
What you want to do in an interview is to have succinct stories built around your competency or skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So we call them PAR statements for problem, action, result.
Mm-hmm.
Some people call them STAR statements: situation, task, action, and result. But the idea is you have a story that you want to share that's related to some problem you've addressed in your work environment, PAR, P, what you did to address that problem, what specifically you did, not just what the whole organization did, but your part in helping to address that problem, and then the results that flowed from your actions. What was the actual difference it made, for example, in customer success or customer support, or making a process more efficient, or building better relationships, or increasing revenue in certain ways? Having succinct PAR statements and literally going through your resume and making sure that your bullet points are PAR statements and not just list of duties is really important, because those stories are your skill set. And so when they want, yes, go ahead.
If it is education or training, usually it's not like numbers or money. And professors like you probably are leaders on their own. It's not that they are reporting to somebody. So how could you put these skills up front?
Perfect. So
without being too, how to say, overqualified for the job?
So if somebody asks me, if I say, so I'm a coach, I happen to be a coach. So
Yes.
tell me about your experience as a coach. I might give an example. Well, let me tell you about a person I just recently did some work with. And they came in with the problem of, I don't know, I could pick, who could I pick? Let me take one I was just recently had about difficulties building, just being in rapport and having good relationships with people I work with.
Mm-hmm.
They were working there. So we explored that together, and I would ask them different kinds of questions and then see what kind of situations where they were dealing with. And we got to see some of their real strengths, that they actually have some abilities, but they also have some unusual ways that they're more task focused than relationship focused in this case, and how they can practice translating that skill into how they work with people. And then I would say, then if this were this was just, I'm thinking of a session I just did recently, but if I just project that out, and so over time, in fact, she, in this particular case, she talked about having envy of somebody who had great confidence. She was a woman of color, and she said, white guys often just talk like they have confidence, and they don't really have all that much skill. They just talk like they do. So how do I do what they did? She realized we talked about the importance of building a skill set to build that confidence. And so she talked about going to school on people and practicing that skill set. And that this last weekend, she delivered 4 trainings, just like this guy who used to brag about how he did it all the time. And she says, I can do that. I did it, and I can do it again and again and again. And so reminding her and kind of supporting her strength and her clarity, because she actually had the answers to how she can develop in these areas. And it was just a matter of my holding her presence, coaching and being with her, and helping her tap into what she could already do well and talk about the skills she was developing. So that was a case where I didn't, as a coach, need to fix or develop or train. I just needed to help being with her to kind of tap into what she'd already done well. So, so boom. So you get a little story of a successful coaching session, and you get a little about me and how I work with people. And so that's one kind of answer. Before I jump off anything else, does that make sense, that kind of story?
Yes, as for directorship position, if for leadership, how you influence others
Yeah,
or manage big corporation.
very good piece. So similar kind of thing. Pick a critical event where your intervention with somebody made a difference in how that organization developed or where it went. And a lot of times, people think that coaching is about changing yourself in some way. They have a misnomer about it. What coaching is it's about dealing with critical moments and seeing different choices you can make that make a huge difference on where you're going. So, if you help a person see a new option that they hadn't considered and the effect that had on decisions they made following up in a leadership role, those kinds of stories can be very powerful.
Okay.
Dr. Larissa Chuprina, is there I've found that oftentimes it's really helpful to practice one or two bullet points. Like if I'm looking at a resume with some, and to go over that, like what you said about how you want to speak to the results that you bring, but also the kind of person that you are. And I find again and again, I'm getting better at talking about myself, but it's only because I've been doing this stuff for like 10 years and working this stuff out. And a lot of times it's really helpful to actually practice with somebody else and to get the feedback from them about you and what gifts you have. That's one reason if I'm doing a package of sessions with somebody, I ask them at the end, I want their feedback because I don't even know what's helpful about what I do unless I'm hearing it from somebody else. And if I'm just going off of my historic ways of seeing myself and all my self-doubt and all that BS, then I'm not going to show up as strongly as I could. So I'm wondering if there's, even just one bullet point or something on your resume that might be useful to take a look at right now. Oh, okay, cool. You're going to come back to this. I want to check in with Joe Logan while we've got you here. Joe, great to see you.
Morning, George. How are you?
Oh, doing well. Doing well. How's it over in Honolulu?
Weather-wise, we're doing great. It's a little warm, humid, but all in all, everything's going well.
Fantastic.
How are you, Dr. Wright? I haven't seen you in a little while.
Yeah, actually, Medlock. This is
Oh, yeah.
I'm Gordon. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Doing well. Yeah, just having fun. Georgetown and I are meeting, as you know, every Wednesday on these meetings and supporting people in their careers, and it's just it's always a rewarding experience. So good to see you show up again. For those of you who don't know, Joe was with us for almost a year in preparation to become the chief of police. Was it was the role?
Yes.
Yeah, chief of police of in the Honolulu district, I believe it was, and he won out over a number of competitors and is now in that role, helping to really build community practices and policing practices that are really community friendly and doing a great job. And so always great to have you come in, Joe. Really great to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Medlock. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was with a process. They just released a documentary, the first 100 days. Came out on local television. One of the investigative reporters that I've known for probably about 30, 40 years put it together. So it aired last night for the first time. I'm waiting for all the comments on the show.
Hey, I'll tell you, when you're a part of a TV broadcast on the first 100 days about your 100 days, there's a leader right there. That's pretty cool.
Appreciate that.
Hey, where did we find that? I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, it was on what we call KGMB TV, which is, I think, owned by Hawaii News Now, owns most of these stations. But it'll be aired a couple more times. It was commercial uninterrupted. So it was straight 28 minutes of me, and really was introducing, because most people don't know that I've been in Hawaii for the last 50 years. So I've lived here most of my life. And so it was an acquaintance of that. And then some of the trials and tribulations of being the chief.
Congratulations. That's really good. Can you share one of a high point of that presentation? One of the things that you're feeling best about over the first 100 days?
Well, for me, it's about my first priority was to earn the trust and respect from everyone that's within the department, right? So we've gone out to meet various all the patrol watches. We're almost we're 99% complete. I've got one more area I got to cover, and then I'm going to hit all the district. The divisions that support patrol, which patrol is the priority to fill. And so because I was in 20 years, I left for 20 years, now I'm back. So people, they don't know who I am, right? And so what I'm finding, what is surprising is the department wants somebody to lead. They've been waiting for really a year and a half, more than that, really, because we've had some issues with the previous two chiefs. And so they wanted somebody to come in, hit the ground, lead the organization, set the path, the tone, the culture, and let's go forward. And so they're giving me the benefit of the doubt right now. They say we're going to, and don't screw it up, but right now we're going to trust you. And so, but there's a little apprehension, right? Because of what they've gone through with two previous chiefs. So, I'm in it for the long haul, and I told them I'm here to support you. This is our police department, not mine, just because I'm the chief. And really, each officer, each employee is the face of this police department. Everything you do or fail to do sets the perception of how the community sees us. And so that's resonating throughout the department, that they have a significant role in how the department is perceived. And even though they're a patrol officer on the street, might be the lowest ranking, and they would like to get promoted, like to move up in the organization. So our goal is to help them do that. But in their part of that is they have to, have a great career, do the right thing, and then set the perception for the department and be our recruiters so we can fill the vacancies we have.
Good for you. Yeah, the frontline workers are probably the critical role in the whole organization, right? They're the ones that interface with the public.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good for you.
And don't hesitate to be a police officer. Don't worry about cameras being out there and everybody else. And
Yeah.
the community, there's parts of the community that don't like police. That's okay. The majority of people here in Hawaii, enjoy their police department, interact with their police department. They want more police. And we're trying to get, more people to fill the ranks.
Cool. Good work.
Right on, Joe. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm just started typing an email as a reminder to connect you with Dr. Wright. As I'm hoping that you'll be able to make contact there in November.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great idea. Thanks for that, Sean.
Beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be at the first Major City Chiefs Conference next month in Dallas. So the 50 or 60 of the major cities police chiefs get together, and they have an association that works together to help each other be the best police chief and the best practices. So I'm looking forward to that next month.
I think you can have an influence there. That's great. Good to hear.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
And go figure, Honolulu is one of those major cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
With just about 1 million people and about 2,000 sworn officers. So it's a significantly large department.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you.
Sweet, Joe. Thank you so much for the update. That's fantastic. And thank you for your service and the work you're doing.
Yeah.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for all that you've done over the past year to help me shape who I am, put it in the right perspective when I interviewed for this position. And so I guess it all paid off. And so thank you for all of your hard work in helping shape Joe Logan. So I appreciate that.
Oh,
Thank you.
sweet. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I see Dr. Larissa, maybe you got your resume, and also welcome Layla and others who've just joined. You can always type questions into the chat. If you're in a spot where you can't come off mute, that's fine. We'll do our best to get to those. So do you have something for us?
Yes, I could say that my expertise in intercultural communication and awareness about cross-cultural, I would say cross-cultural sensitivity.
Great. Now, can you give us an example of your skill as a communicator in that area?
Yes, being intercultural myself, I understood it from personal and professional perspective, and I developed several courses and classes to teach faculty at community college how to work with non-native speakers, to be understood and to help them to be more, how would I say it, to reach them out at the place where they are. Very often materials for onboarding, for medical insurance, and other like technical things are written in the language which needs to be deciphered. So to be aware of cultural lenses when we read a text, we need some cultural knowledge to understand it. And this is where I am a bridge and a helper.
Great. Perfect. Now, one other part. You've given me the problem P and the action A. Now tell us about the result. How are your students doing as a result of your intervention?
As a result of intervention, the faculty and staff were more aware about the language they use, the speed they speak, and ask questions so that they can understand what is understood.
Great, great. And these were people who had English as a second language, or the staff you're referring to in this case?
This is how to work with the non-native speakers.
Working with. So these are native speakers working with the non-native speakers.
Native
Gotcha.
speakers, yes.
And then, so let me understand that the non-native speakers then became more proficient in asking those kind of questions, is what you're saying. Suzanne. Good.
Yes.
Good. Good. And sometimes having a specific example, like one particular person who was going through one of these sort of tricky sort of conversations and was able to ask the question to get clarified that made a difference in her getting a job or making a, something. If you have just a kind of human interest piece that kind of grabs at the emotional level, sometimes the tendency is to give the story, the PAR story at a general level, as opposed to being very specific. You want them to have a video of your experience. So when you said you have cross-cultural experience, I would mention the cross-cultural experience. What is your what's your cultural background?
Again, very difficult to say in one word. I lived in 5 countries before the age of 6.
Perfect. That's a great story right there.
That's, yeah, just opening. I lived in 5 countries before the age of 6 gives me a very felt sense of, wow, like you know people, you have been around, you've been in many different cultures, and you began navigating that at a very early age.
Now, the thing that people typically forget is, I don't want to go into all that detail about what the 5 countries are. Tell them the 5 countries, because maybe they have a grandmother from one of the countries, and then suddenly you've got this emotional connection that you didn't even think about. Oh, from Poland. Oh my gosh, my grandmother's from Poland. She had such troubles. Suddenly you've made an emotional connection because you've made it concrete.
Yeah.
So
I was born in Germany, but grew up in Ukraine. But my father was Russian.
Oh my goodness.
Then I came to the United States. And
well, not like the Ukrainian and Russian experiences would have some relevance in today's world, right?
Yeah.
My gosh, that's a huge, huge fact you just mentioned of understanding those two cultures.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of feelings come up. So sometimes an interview question will go in a direction you're not expecting, but that has personal meaning to the person that you're meeting with. And how you explain that, or sensitivity around those kinds of cultural differences, is what they remember. And if you contribute to them in that interview in a way that they grow and learn, you've made a difference.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
So, Dr. Chuprina, does that help with, can you replicate that for lots of questions that you might be asked, and how to communicate yourself and your successes to people?
Yes, for education and training.
Mhm.
However, for leadership and directorship position, it can be probably a little bit in a different
That's right.
rackles or different.
Yeah. So the principle is the same. It's just a different context. So a leadership opportunity that you took on where you volunteered. This is maybe some stuff that Annie was talking about earlier too, where you stepped into a leadership opportunity, decided to take on a project, and then you did something with that project and it made a difference. And now you're running a sub-department of a team of 5 or 6 people in that area. That kind of story, just tells the problem, action, result. But the opportunity in this case, instead of problem, it's more opportunity, action, result. That would be an OAR instead of a PAR. You got an oar in the water in that case. But yeah, for leadership development, it's really about stepping up and taking on leadership responsibilities. And companies are hungry for that. They want to see people who are willing to do that. So it's a very valuable skill.
Yeah, I proposed and it was accepted to create a cross-cultural center. And now the city is given the money and I created a whole community around it.
Perfect. Yes.
Wow.
Exactly
Congratulations. And that, yes,
Mhm.
that right there is a wonderful bullet point that shows the results that you bring.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I want to check in with Annie. I want to circle back. And Annie, from what Joe and Dr. Chuprina have been sharing, what are you getting about your development as a leader and sharing about yourself?
Yeah, I've been listening and kind of just thinking of situations that I've been in where it's been similar, and just kind of dissecting words and sentences a little bit more. And Dr. Medlock had mentioned something, about like decision making. And right away, I thought in my mind, oh my goodness, I'm a cold thinker. I'm a processor. I like to think about every situation before I make a decision. I'm that way in my personal life, professional life. And while a part of it is kind of accepting maybe that's who I am, a little part of me does think that I could be more of a hot thinker to help with those decision making on the fly. But Dr. Medlock, do you think that there's like a right or wrong way to make decisions in that sense? I don't know if my question is direct enough, but is there a way to maybe like better off my like cold thinking skills to be a little hotter, if that makes sense?
Let me tell you, first of all, just using that distinction already puts you on the map. And then you can talk about what's the distinction between hot and cold thinking. And that's a great piece. And then my guess is you can answer that question, because there are going to be times when one's going to be appropriate, another one's going to be appropriate. And so for you to just sort of dig in and notice what you're learning about that process. This is good, that it's important in interviews and in these kinds of development opportunities. It's not so much what you know, it's how are you learning and growing that's more interesting. So it's not like, yeah, I've got everything together, I know hot, and it's more like here's a situation where I wasn't quite sure, and I was, I have a deliberate model, but I wanted to use an instinct that I had, or an intuition, but I was kind of wrestling with that, and this is what I chose to do. But that's what I'm really working on, is how to translate and know when to use which kind. That shows sensitivity and acumen and intelligence about the process, and that you are a learner. And it just has a whole different feel than people trotting out the pony show about how good they are at something.
Oh, that makes me feel good. And you're right. I think I do know the answer. I was just a little curious to see if you brought a different perspective. So I appreciate that.
I'm sure you probably know more about it than I do. So I'm so glad you have an answer here. Good for you.
Fantastic. And Annie, I have a hunch about your personality style and Dr. Medlock's and some of the things that you could do to, well, Dr. Medlock, what would you do to be more on the hot side of engaging? What might be something that you could practice every day, just a little bit outside of your comfort zone that would prepare you more for that?
Well, it's a great question. Great question. So I think I lead a group every Tuesday. So for me to work on that skill would be, okay, something when I feel like something needs to be done, I can get a sense of, I'd like to see us move in this direction, but a lot of times I'll lay back a little and just let it. But just to practice that skill, I might just jump in. Let's say at least once in each meeting that I have, or each group I do, I'm going to take an authoritative step toward a direction and a recommendation, or make a decision around something about where I think we need to look at it. And when I think back on the group I did last night, I did that a couple of times that really did make a difference. And sometimes I try to be facilitating, but sometimes I just want to get in there and make sure we do something. And I'm trusting something when I do that. So it would be practicing that, George Donald, I think. And I call it working on my regulator I'm a cooperator and tend to be an analyzer in certain situations. And I can also be a energizer in others, but I'm not as strong in the regulator role, which is the regulator is taking charge and moving stuff forward. So practicing that has been an ongoing assignment that I work on.
So Annie, what's one little risk that you could take each day in this direction?
Yeah.
It's not going to get you fired, but like, just a little outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's a blessing in disguise too, being a cold thinker, because I do think I understand both sides. And when I am holding a meeting or I am trying to communicate with a large group, I do understand that sometimes people take time to process, and I don't necessarily always take lack of engagement or questions like too personally. I always get follow-up emails, which I assume are coming. But then on my end, I mean, in meetings, kind of what Dr. Medlock was saying is just kind of practicing, like coming up with like my first thought that comes to my mind, instead of holding it back and thinking of like the exact right answer. Because I think that's where my cold thinking comes in, is like, I want to make sure I have everything, all my ducks in a row. And I want to make sure that this conversation is efficient and they understand me. So I think I'm a little hesitant to be hot in certain situations, maybe of embarrassment. I don't know what it is. So maybe just kind of in meetings, just saying the first thing that comes to my mind and seeing where that leads me, I guess.
Okay, great. But now on a scale of 1 to 10, how terrifying is that? 10 is like I'm jumping off of a cliff.
It's not that terrifying. Like when I say it out loud, it actually kind of sounds silly that I'm that hesitant. So I definitely think this is a practice that I could implement very quickly.
Okay, so now pick one time. Just think about a meeting you have coming up, and don't say, oh, I'm going to do this all the time, because we find that if we do that our unconscious mind kind of kicks in and we talk ourselves out of it. So just pick one simple time. And if you do it once and are conscious of it, that's a huge gain.
Yeah. Okay. I can think of a meeting tomorrow that I can try it out at.
Cool.
Awesome.
Do it.
Annie, that's great. I look forward to hearing about how that goes, what insights you have, how you may build on it, or what you discover in that.
Yeah. Stay tuned, guys.
Awesome.
I noticed we had Dr. Rudison Imhotep in a bit. It just kind of went off, but I wondered if there was anything you wanted to share, Doctor, about your perspective. I think you've been on our calls before, as I recall, so just be curious to hear.
I didn't get the full gist of the conversation. I'm in the midst of students in a deferred expulsion program here in the Des Moines Public Schools.
Oh,
But
okay.
what I stated was regards from transitioning from a nonprofit organization to working in the private sector and seeing some of the changes, if there are any,
Mhm.
and it just because most of my career, my working career in the past, I could say past 15 years has been basically in nonprofit.
Okay.
And now I've recently got my credentials several months ago, and now I'm doctor, and people look at me different and talk to me different.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's a big
You
deal.
know, yeah. So, but I have a wealth of information, and I'm just trying to find the correct organization
Mhm.
to
So
move to.
well,
Because
you've been working in education most of your career, is that correct?
not really.
Mm.
Man, I got a whole story to tell, but we don't have enough time
Okay.
to tell it. You
So
know,
you have a number of things you could be doing, right? Okay.
yes.
So
I've done construction. I've operated in the private sector in sales and marketing, and now, like I said, I'm working basically with education. And recently, I've been getting a lot of opportunities to come and speak as a guest lecturer at Drake University here in Des Moines.
nice.
And it's about my fourth lecture this year already. And I'm saying, well, if you keep asking me to come and teach your students, why don't you hire me?
There you go. You're moving in the right direction. So tell us,
like that.
what's your focus of your doctorate? What was it you completed, and what's your area of specialty?
That's the business administration with concentration in human resource management.
Okay.
My thesis was hiring nonviolent African American male ex-offenders, a phenomenological investigation on employment discrimination.
Cool.
And
Wow.
so
Okay. Mhm.
so that's what my study was about. I'm looking at really with businesses and how to cope with finding untapped talent out there when employers state that they can't find people, and there's folks out here that's willing and ready to work, but sometimes the culture of a business might not be receptive to people who
Perfect.
have different backgrounds.
I could imagine you working in departments of diversity and inclusion and related to hiring practices and opening people's perspective on how they select and screen for employees. So you've got what you want to, in some level, you've just invested in a degree, a very important degree that gives you a certain story of where your life is going. You're making a contribution right now in those fields of employment practices and diversity, I suspect. And so to now look at what's the next opportunity, building on that story of how you translate that now into a for-profit area. It could be any organization, right? In any field, your expertise is going to be relevant, and probably in programs that are related to education or training in some way would have the strongest. I think of a person's sweet spot. The sweet spot is what evolves out of what you've just been doing. That's the next logical right step. So people go, it's a no-brainer. This is the guy we need. So you want to look at where your sweet spot is and what specific organizations you think would be the ones you'd most want to work for.
I'm inclined to believe that might be outside of the state of Iowa, especially without a doubt. I'm labeled as a critical race theorist, which the legislature here in the state of Iowa made it illegal to bring the critical race theory up in.
In other words, what you're saying is you're a good critical thinker, period, right? Yeah. So you want to get into an environment where people are at least open to those kinds of ideas. That makes sense. And you're willing to relocate?
In a New York second.
Can't wait to get out.
I've been listening to the corn grow for some time here, and
Well, I'll tell you, you've got, so the world's your oyster. You've got a lot of opportunities, a lot of places you can go. So I think it's really, this is a situation where it's important for you to do your research on the organizations you want to work for that are really attractive to you because they're a good fit for you. Because you're coming now in as a mature worker with a perspective and a contribution and an agenda, perhaps even of things you want to promote. So look for your at least five, and I say sometimes 5 to 10 organizations that you think you would most want to work for. Research them really well so you know who they are, what their issues are, what their challenges are. Talk to people in those organizations as best you can, or see where you have contacts. And then when you contact them with the narrative. You know, I've been looking at your organization. You're one of the 5 that I have considered to be the top best fit for some of my skills. And I'd love to talk with X, Y, or Z, hiring manager. Avoid HR at all costs. I'm sorry, Annie.
Of course, that's the problem. that's the main problem.
You can let me know if I'm speaking out of turn here.
Well, I'm high-fiving you over here, man.
I know. So HR's job is to look for the best possible fit to minimize the possibility of a bad hire. So they're going to look at matching requirements and applications, and anything that doesn't quite fit, they put in the other pile. And
I know something I wanted to add. For the past 5 years, of teaching race relations to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, and 96 of the counties here in the state all have people that come through this training to become, law enforcement cadets. And I know I've been consistent with that, and a lot of the students, as well as the practitioners there, are they're elated when I come, because because they receive an authentic, truly an authentic viewpoint, that probably some different speaking from a different lens to help people come understand about.
We've got the chief of police from Honolulu here who's looking at exactly that issue.
Well, that's what I do.
So you guys might have a conversation. This is a networking thing where you might have a conversation. Joe might be able to point you in a direction of places to talk to. The police hiring could be a huge area for you in different opportunities. So be creative. You've got a wonderful skill set, and you've just grown in that area, and you're the buyer right now. You are the commodity that people are looking for. The market is so find that market for you, and then start really digging in.
I have a new publication coming out here in the next 2 weeks too. Another one. So
can you share that link with us?
When it's copacetic.
Well, okay, cool. So we'll get to see it in a little bit.
I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. Well, hey, we are coming up on the hour. I just want to thank everybody for joining in today and for your questions. I didn't give this context early on, or if I did, I didn't remind about it. Your questions and the work that you're doing are serving people, because everybody is working on something. And so when you're sharing, so Dr. Chuprina, that was huge for people. I mean, we all need to get better at talking about ourselves, or most of us do. It can certainly serve us. So really, really appreciate your shares. Annie, so appreciate what you're working on. Dr. Imhotep, Joe Logan, thank you so much. So this is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, and this is what we do. Wherever you're at in your career, our job is to support you in developing. I haven't named this for a while, but Dr. Medlock often brings this in, that we see career as your pathway to becoming who you can become. It's really there to serve you. It's a vessel for you to reach your potential. And so we want to serve you in that. We want you to be the biggest impact that you can be in the world, a biggest positive impact that you can be. And so as you're working on yourself, Dr. Medlock and I are working on ourselves, and people are able to learn and grow with us. And so I love everybody jumping in and sharing. That's how we operate. That's how we fly. So really, really thank you for that.
And we look forward to hearing follow-up too. So thank you so much.
Yes. And we've got a few things coming up. I would love for you, some of what we talked about today, you'll get more insights in depth on the neuroscience of connecting, an event that I did last week. You can check that out there. And then we also have coming up, like Dr. Medlock was mentioning earlier, if you want like the real game, the thing that's totally awesome, it's the More Life training. Dr. Chuprina can testify to that. That is a deep dive into what we'll call, I guess, the relationship skills, not the soft skills. Really say all of how powerful soft skills are, but the deep relationship skills. We go deep on that, into where we are doing exercises with a small group, with coaches, and it's a very interactive 2.5-day training. So take a look at that. Lots of coaches and therapists and lawyers come to that to get CEUs as well. So check that out. And then we also have kind of like an event coming up about how being kind to yourself actually has you be more productive and be more open. And that's something that, geez Louise, everybody I work with, at some point we find, my God, you're hard on yourself. And like, you know, I know that's true for all of us. And I think anybody can lean into being kinder and being more generous with ourselves, and thus able to be more generous and open with the people around us in a growthful way. So there's some things to check out there. Thank you all so much. Dr. Medlock, it is such an honor and blessing to have you here. Really appreciate you.
And I appreciate what you're doing to generate this and to create this space for this kind of work. Very, very moving. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to end with one more thing. We are in process of developing an app that will make all of this easier for you, because I know we're throwing links into chats that are then going to disappear and all of that. But there's an app in process that is going to help you connect to all of this stuff, help you refresh when you're going into a meeting or an interview, and help you get prepared kind of on the go on your time as you need it. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited to share that with you.
Cool. Thank you
Many
all.
blessings.
Take care. Have a good one.
See you next week.